let's talk to the Diddy. One of the things we've loved about this season was bringing Ray Didinger back as a weekly guest on our show, obviously for so many years here on WIP. Then he had retired, and then Ray graciously agreed to be a weekly guest again on our program, and this time it goes all the way up to Super Bowl 59. We welcome him, the legend, Ray Didinger. Ray Diddy, how are you, sir?
Doing good, Joe. How are you doing?
Oh, Ray, I'm so happy. I am so happy. Ray, tell me your thoughts off the top of the Eagles, the performance yesterday, and obviously going to be arriving in Super Bowl 59.
Yeah, I know. It's a great one. There are so many different ways you can look at yesterday's game. It's the kind of game where Nick Sirianni, when it was over, referred to a total team effort, and it really was.
Yeah.
It really was. The offense, obviously, 459 yards total offense in a championship game. That's pretty impressive. Working through some injury issues on your offensive line. The defense coming up with all the takeaways and some big plays on special teams. A couple big returns and good field position, and the special teams forced a takeaway at a key moment that's helped the Eagles open a little space there in the first half. Every phase of the game, the Eagles won, and that's how you win championship games. Really,
no question.
It's so funny watching the game and watching that pitch to Barkley to start the game. And him going 60 to start the game. I just had a flashback to Wilbert Montgomery against the Cowboys. I just did. That's championship game at home in front of the big crowd, all that electricity. You hand it to your big guy right there. Well, in Wilbert's case, it was the second play of the game.
That's right.
In this case, it was the first. But just watching him. We'll all remember the sight of Wilbert bursting through the line and heading it down the open field to the end zone at Veterans Stadium. And when Barkley turned that corner and started opening up the field, I said, my God, this is Wilbert Montgomery all over again.
So I thought the same thing.
You love having good memories like that.
Yeah,
Lord knows we've had enough bad memories, flashbacks to bad things. It's nice to have one that's wonderful.
Well, and I'll give you one just for what it's worth. So Wilbert and Deuce both scored on the second play of an NFC Championship game. And, of course, Eagles,
one better than the other.
Yeah, so both went through my mind, but I get your point entirely,
Eagles undefeated against the NFC East in championship games,
too. How about that? All right, Ray, I thought Jalen was superb yesterday. His performance, what'd you make of it?
Really good. Really, really good. For all the questions and all the doubts and all the concern and all the angst that surrounded him all week about, how hurt is he, how much is he going to be able to play, how limited might he be, all that stuff. He went out and he played great. 20 for 28, 246 yards. 110 quarterback rating, which to me doesn't even begin to describe how good he was. Throws for one TD, runs for three. He was great. He really, really was. And that's a big thing. You're going on to the championship game, and he's going up against the best of the best, and he's going to have to be as good as he was yesterday and then some to win the next game, because he's going up against the best big game quarterback you got in the NFL right now. So he's, the Eagles have been down this road before, and they took on Tom Brady when he was at his peak, and they found a way to win that game. They're going to have to find a way to do it this time. But Hurts was really, really in command. There were a lot of really good plays that he made in that game, but the 4th and 4 pass to Brown down the sideline was just great. It's they're in the quarterback walking the earth that could have thrown that ball any better than he did. He just dropped it right in the bucket down the sideline, and that was a big play in that game. And they made a lot of them. And of course Saquon is, he's the guy everybody's going to focus on. But you come away from that. I'm coming away from that saying, God, there was, with all the pressure and all the eyes that were on Jalen Hurts and wondering, is he going to be equal to the moment? Well, he was equal to it and then some.
Just incredible performance. The offense overall. I did feel like, Ray, the defense in terms of stopping some of those conversions, the third downs, the fourth down conversions, our defense, did they take a step back against the Commanders? And how concerned are you moving forward about that conversion rate, that situational football, third and fourth down conversions? Did our defense take a step back?
I don't think so, John. I think they just ran into it. That's a hot offense.
Yeah.
They really are. They scored 45 on Detroit last week. So,
sure.
That's a hot offense. You weren't going to shut them down. They were going to make their plays. But in the second half, when you really needed to, they came up with the stops. And the turnovers, listen, we talk about it endlessly about how big turnovers are in all NFL games, but especially in the postseason. And the giveaway takeaway thing is what swings the balance so often. And never was that true or more true than yesterday when you saw that. I mean, the 4 takeaways was huge. And if you look at where the Eagles are right now, they're plus 10 giveaway takeaway in the postseason. I'm not talking about the regular season. They're plus 10 in the postseason.
Wow.
I can't remember the last team I saw that had that big of an advantage on the turnovers in just the postseason. And if you go all the way back to the bye week, when things were really sort of on the edge with this team and nobody kind of knew where the season was going, at that point at the bye week they were minus 6 as a team, and since then they're plus 27.
Wow.
So I think there are a lot of reasons and there are a lot of things you could point to about how this team turned it around and the various aspects of this team that turned it around. And you can point to Barkley, of course, that's where most people will start, and the defense is number one. That's true. But the giveaway takeaway is just huge. I mean, they're taking the ball away at an amazing rate, and the quarterback's protecting it better than anybody. So that's the formula, and now they just got to do it for one more game.
Oren Burks once again, went out there and made plays. I did not expect that there would be such a legitimate, across the board, whoever goes down, the next guy up really is equally, as competitive. Once again, Howie Roseman, Ray. Can you speak to the job that he did this year? It might be the best job he's ever done, and it's not that close.
Yeah, I mean, when you factor in all the aspects of roster building with the draft, and then the free agents that he brought in, and then the other thing nobody really talks about, but is really important in the overall scheme of things, is the extending of contracts.
Yep.
Extending contracts with existing players who are young and you really have a future and you want to lock them up.
And you're not stomping on everyone's toes. The way that Howie accomplishes these contracts and re-ups people, just think about how vastly different it is from a place like Dallas, where it's always consternation and whoa, they're mistreating their guys. Here, It feels like everything gets done and guys like it. Devontae Smith gets the big deal. AJ also has the big deal, and they're good with it. He somehow finesses these relationships to keep everyone happy while assembling the most powerful group of guys ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I don't think anybody would argue the fact that this is the best roster in the NFL, the best top to bottom. They're that good, and Howie's the guy that built it. I mean, that's for sure. And to your point about Burks, I don't think anybody in town knew who he was, even up to a month ago. I mean, he was just a sort of a role player. But now you lose Nakobe Dean, and now you got to replace him, and it's a pretty big spot. Yep. And he goes in there and plays really well. And I remember Seth Joyner telling me one time about the psychology of teams, and especially the psychology of winning teams. And Seth said something. He said, sometimes when a player goes down, a star player, a really good player goes down, and you lost him, and now the backup, next man up, he has to step up and play. He says, what will happen very often is that guy will play way over his head because he doesn't want to let everybody else down. The feeling, when you step in, you understand the responsibility, you understand who you're replacing, and you understand the basic framework of the defense. And a guy who's just kind of a player, just kind of an okay guy, will play way over his head because he doesn't want to let down the other guys on the team. He said, I've seen that over and over and over again. And I think you're seeing it with Burks right now. He's playing really good football.
Ray Didinger with us, as he is every Monday at this time. Ray, let's talk about Sirianni. Curious your perspective, if you can kind of paint the picture of the story of Nick. Now, I know the story is not over. Long way still to go in his career. But I am struck by the last two coaches in Philly sports to win it all were punching bags at various points in their career. And that was Doug and that was Charlie. And Sirianni might be about to make it 3 for 3 in that regard. I marvel at his ability to blend new school concepts, like going for it on fourth down and connectivity and that stuff, with old school principles like toughness, fighting through adversity, attention to detail, and accountability. Can you speak to the Sirianni story?
I think you did a pretty good job of it right there. I think that's, when I look at him, that's kind of what I see. I mean, he's over the course of this year. I mean, he's made some decisions and done some things that had me shaking my head. I think a lot of people have felt that way. But the one thing that you cannot deny, and this is where winning coaching really begins, is do the players believe in them? You know, I mean, it's not what you are drawing up on the blackboard. It's not what you're saying in front of the meeting room, really. I mean, if the players don't believe what you're saying, if the players don't believe the game plan you're giving them, then it doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's not going to work. It has to start with them believing that this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's going to give us a game plan that we can go out and win with. He understands what we're good at. He also understands what we're not good at. And our game plan is going to be such that we're going to be no matter who we're going up against, he's going to have us prepared to go out and beat that football team. It really has to start with just that belief in the players that this guy has the map. He has the plan that can get the best out of us and take us where we want to go. And that Nick has that. You know, he's never. At the end of last year, it was fair to question it. At the end of last year, when you saw the way this team just completely bottomed out at the end of last year, and then went down to Tampa and basically had a no-show in a playoff game in Tampa, there was very real reason to wonder if there was now an irreparable disconnect between him and the players. Because on the outside looking in, it certainly looked that way.
It absolutely did.
But
he told us that he was struggling. He told us, hey, if I had answers, I would have, executed those.
Right.
That was a major problem for me at the time.
Yeah, and I think that when you really look back on it, the change at the coordinators was just so huge. I mean, you went from the offensive and defensive staff of last year, which had major problems, and Sirianni was sort of the guy that was left standing there.
But what about that, Ray? What about the fact
you replace those guys with Moore and Fangio that have been really good. I mean, really, really good in that area. That kind of thing that's an immense help to the head coach because he's got two guys there that he can really lean on.
And I have faith that Vic Fangio, I love the idea that he'll be back. I don't know that Kellen Moore will be back. What about that?
Well,
not
getting Dallas
chances
is probably
He's
safe.
got a second interview with the Saints in person this week. Yeah.
Okay.
What about that, Ray? The fact that that is problematic. This probably will be another offense next year for everyone to learn. That is a major. That's what holds me back most about Nick.
Well,
yeah. The spot that I thought he was most likely to wind up was Dallas, and now that Dallas has filled that chair,
so that could be great for us.
It greatly increases the chances that Kellen Moore will be back, and I hope that he is because I would not want to see them have to start over again with a new offensive coordinator.
Likewise.
Now there's only the one spot open, and that's New Orleans, and that's just a mess. I mean, I know Kellen Moore wants to be a head coach, and I think he deserves that opportunity. But I don't know who would take that job. I mean, it's a bad team. They're in salary cap complete disarray. You step in there. I don't know how they're going to get that house in order. I don't think it's a particularly desirable job. If I'm Kellen Moore, I'll just say, you know what? No, I'll take a pass on this one, and I'll wait for something better in a year from now because the Eagles aren't going away. I mean, the Eagles are going to be there for a while, and I think there's every reason to believe that Kellen Moore will still be a hot property a year from now with maybe better opportunities. So I think the likelihood, as you ask me right now, the likelihood, I think he's going to be back here next year, and that's great. That will help everybody.
Ray, let's talk about Super Bowl 59. So 52 certainly had a better ring than 15 and 57. What are your early thoughts on Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl 59?
It's a script. It's like a movie script. It's like a playwright's dream. I mean, you've got the Eagles, the team with Saquon Barkley, who's been, for whatever else you want to say. I mean, he's been one of the biggest stars in football this year. He's one of the biggest stories of football this year. A guy that left a bad situation and found and turned down more money in other places. I don't know if people realize that. I mean, there were at least three other teams that offered him more money than the Eagles, but he chose the better opportunity over the contract. And because this was where he wanted to go, because this was where he felt he had the best opportunity to achieve success. So, I mean, that's a big story in and of itself. And then on the other side, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who have all the star power and are going for something as unprecedented in the Super Bowl era, which is 3 in a row. And then you got on top of that, they're being coached by the coach who took the Eagles to a Super Bowl before. So, I mean, there's a million different angles to this, and a lot of young stars that are really coming on. I mean, you've seen, Jalen Carter has now become sort of a marquee name.
Yep.
I mean, you watch the games now, and you see how much they isolate on him and how much they talk about him. I mean, he's become, talked about as maybe the best young defensive lineman in the NFL. So it's from if you were like casting a movie, this would be a perfect one. This game coming up because it's just because you've just got that Philadelphia fan base, and you can just imagine because I was at Super Bowl 15. I saw what the Philadelphia fans were like on Bourbon Street. Take that Philadelphia fan base, that Philadelphia fan passion, and you put it down at Bourbon Street in Super Bowl week. That's a story in itself.
I love it. All right, Ray, final thing. I'm curious in that vast brain of yours, if you have contemplated yet this possibility. If Mahomes gets hurt during the game, the Eagles will be facing Carson Wentz in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm. I thought about that.
It's unbelievable.
I thought about that. And the way this thing is playing out, you almost expect it. I mean, there's so many aspects about this game. There's so many, as journalists we talk about angles on games, the angles in games. And there's a million of them here. And that's one I actually did think about. I mean, how incredibly ironic would this be if something happened to Mahomes? It's not that I'm wishing it, but if it did, that Mahomes went down and you had Carson Wentz come in and to play quarterback for the Chiefs against the Eagles, and he's now trying to achieve the history that Patrick Mahomes was.
And he'd be the backup that comes in and wins it for the team, like Nick did for anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean it's
wild.
It's the Nick Foles scenario all over again.
Wild.
Except Carson Wentz is Carson Wentz.
Yeah, and he's not going to win the game.
Crazy.
Hey Ray, we'll talk to you a lot, obviously, in the lead up to the Super Bowl. Thanks so much, my man, for being a